What's up, everybody? It's Alex Winking Michael. Hope everybody's having a great Sunday. Just been kind of hanging out, laying low, not doing much of anything, playing some games. Been playing the Division 2 a lot more lately. Not a lot of stuff out right now. Tried some auto chess stuff. Can't get into it. I can't stand not having control. I don't know if that's like a personal thing or what, but I'm not into it. But today I wanted to do this video, and this is kind of a unique, interesting story to me, at least. Hopefully to some of you as well. But we're going to talk a little bit about EA, and I know I'm like the EA shill. I happen to kind of be a fan of EA. I kind of like them. I know their microtransactions and everything gets them in hot water. And I found this to be a little bit funny just in the way that they worded this stuff, and it defends the other side of the fence, not my side, where I'm like, hey, EA is a money-making machine. They actually sometimes put out quality content. Sometimes they struggle. But I like to think they're not as big of a monster as everybody thinks they are. But this kind of was interesting and very peculiar how these questions were answered. I'm talking about an IGN interview, and we're going to talk about the EA Originals program. Basically, it's the indie game program that they have. And it's funny how they are working with these small teams of developers on their indie games and how they're trying to support them in a very nonchalant but kind of in-your-face way. But let's jump into the article. Today's article, this is via IGN. It's been forever since I've done a gaming news video, but this is via IGN. It is how EA is making sure EA Originals aren't lost in the shuffle. Because, EA is all about microtransaction, AAA titles. They're not really pushing a small title narrative. I mean, they want bigger, better, really bigger, maybe not better, but really bigger titles. So it says, and how EA is open to the Originals program being as big or small as it needs to be. That's also pretty funny verbiage here. But this is a pretty good article. It says, this weekend sees the release of another in the EA Originals lineup, Sea of Solitude, which it looks really good. And I am not an indie game person. I am a graphic snob. I'm probably the worst kind of gamer there is because I want AAA. I want budget, $100 million budget. My expectations are high, but Sea of Solitude looks awesome. I'm really blown away by the concept and everything. Rather than waiting to hear for a later date to reveal what's coming to EA from EA's funding of independent developers, we know more than ever about the EA Originals lineup thanks to this year's EA Play. But EA Originals will only grow as much as it needs to, so long as it can still give each developer the attention they need. Well, by attention, you mean direction. I think we should substitute that word because EA is definitely going to give them some direction. And I'll call out kind of what I think is funny a little bit. It's down here below. But speaking to IGN, EA's EVP of Development and Growth, Matt Bilby, explained that the announcement of 3 new EA Originals during the E3 2019 adjacent EA Play saw an increase in the number of new games from years past, not because of a desire to simply grow the program, but instead due to the quality of the opportunities. Fair enough. You saw some better indie originals. I think EA is smart that I am definitely in the minority in my thought of indie games. I'm not a huge fan of them. I think they're okay. I mean, it is what it is, but I understand that a lot of people love these things. A lot of people really like indie games, and I think EA realizes that as well, so they found this to be probably a pretty important thing. It also makes sense business-wise to partner with these small developers because now you're cultivating your talent. Because a lot of these indie studios either get bought up or they go away. I mean, I hate to say it, but, undertaking a game development, that's a really tough business to start and to sustain. So what they really are doing in essence is developing a talent pool or a bench for their company. So when these things do inevitably, if they do fail or if they, do disperse or break apart, they can retain the talent they want to retain. Actually, a genius move, and a lot of companies are doing this now. Basically, all the big ones are. It's scaled up previous years due to the quality of the opportunities from the independent development scene that we saw, Bilby said. As we look ahead to the next 1 or 2 years, I could see us scaling up more. At EA Play, EA announced the new project from Hazelight, the developers of A Way Out, Zoink's Lost in Random, and Glowmade's Rust Heart. In previous years, EA stuck to just announcing a single game, like Zoink's previous EA original, Fae, Sea of Solitude, or Unravel. And while Bilby said EA Originals could continue to see growth like this, the most important element for EA is maintaining a close relationship with each developer brought into the program. Well, there you have it. I wonder why that's so important. So you can just snap them up as soon as something happens. It was just the volume of quality ideas, and if that continues, I could see EA Originals continuing to grow. What's important is every game that we have, we assign a producer within EA that acts as a tentacle limb to Electronic Arts. We don't want to get to the point where one producer is looking after 10 or 15 different developers, because that's when we'll lose the real uniqueness of what EA Originals and EA Partners is. Yeah, you really need them to kind of hawk these new people, these fledgling new companies, so that they learn the EA way. Again, I'm not hating on it. I like it, but I can see where a lot of people probably don't, because EA's tendrils are going to be injected into these games. Bilby goes on to say, Bilby said that part of the connection also gives these EA Originals, EA partner teams access to, quote, this is where it gets good, to our competitive gaming team, so they can understand what they would need to develop a feature set for competitive gaming. If they wanted a marketplace or auction house or security, if they wanted to go free-to-play or premium going to Asia. Let's put this in layman's terms. What he's saying is our competitive gaming team is the microtransaction team. Free-to-play microtransactions, auction house leads to microtransactions, competitive gaming leads to microtransactions. So basically, they're going to teach these developers how to monetize the living hell out of their games. Being the company man, I love it. I think it's hilarious that it's so obvious, really well crafted by Bilby here and what he said in his statement. I like it, but I really do think the heart of EA Originals is talent development, future talent development, and then also monetization of indie games, maybe a little bit more subtly than they do through their own AAA titles. But Bilby said there are absolutely no boundaries of creativity when it comes to we have to have an EA original game that looks like this, with the company instead wanting the independent teams to dictate what the games looks like. The lack of limitations is also in reference to scope, but Bilby pointed out to refer to the next game. Joseph Fares, the A Way Out team, internally as Project Nuts, calling it a much bigger concept and a much bigger idea. Whatever the scope or size these projects may be, while EA generally expects development to not go for more than a couple of years, the publisher doesn't necessarily have an exact cadence in mind for when EA Originals should be released to help support the EA Origin Access library in different forms. For example, Xbox intends to support its Game Pass subscription service with a regular cadence of exclusives. And that goes on to say that, of course, EA's focus is large-scale titles, attracting players to its subscription service, which they're bringing to PS4, yada, yada, yada. So this is a longer article. I encourage you to read the rest of it, a couple more paragraphs. But, so basically the premise of this article, I think, is, kind of, it's a good article. But I think the EA is very, very cautiously and underhandedly and tactfully, let's say tactfully, not underhandedly, developing their new wave of talent, because the games industry is difficult to find talented people. I saw an article today where the Legend of Zelda sequel is looking for level building talent, like dungeon builders, like field dungeon builders, stuff like that. So that's an article. I think it was on IGN or maybe like Eurogamer. I don't know where it was at, but I found that interesting because, you would think the Legend of Zelda sequel is good. Like, hey, and someone to design dungeons and puzzles and things, that's a pretty intricate part of the game. So it's scary that that's an outside higher position. But, so I think it's important, like, what EA is doing is actually really, really smart. I mean, you're developing and cultivating relationships with these developers, the next generation of them, to bring them aboard. But I can see how ultimately this will be very unpopular if people start to read between the lines on what they're actually doing here. They're teaching these developers the EA way. And as we continue to go on, monetization and microtransactions are going to be a part of gaming forever. I think that you have this little bit of pushback right now, but eventually people are going to get more comfortable with it, and they're going to get they're just going to become immune to it. It's just going to be an expectation for every game at this point. It's funny because a friend of mine and I were playing The Division 2 last night, and I bought the collector's edition a while, and we were playing through it, and we got to the classified objective. And it said it was for year one members. Well, I didn't have an issue, but he was ineligible to enter it until he purchased the season 1 pass, which is $40. So essentially he has to get out of the game, because we're there, we're ready to do it. They got collectibles, we're enticed by what it has. I mean, it's brilliant by Ubisoft what they did, but literally he pays $40 and we do a 10-minute dungeon. Now, hopefully that value will continue to expand, but at the same time, this is reality now, and I think what EA is doing is securing their next generation of monetization. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and thank you guys so much for the support. We'll keep the gaming news videos coming. I should be back a little bit more regularly now, but again, thank you guys for everything. The comments, the likes, subscribes. We're over 8,000 views on the channel. I think that's really cool. That's amazing. But thanks again for everything, and I will see you guys on the next one.